start going into questions.
All right, I'm supposed to start talking now though, right?
Mm-hmm.
It says live. Okay, guys. Hi. Look, we're getting kind of high tech here. All right. Before it was just from my office with a couple things in the background. And now our fabulous staff, who I'm going to make them come get on camera again. They're going to yell at me. Come here, all three of you. Come on, get in here. So these are the wonderful NSEA staff. I'm going to introduce them first. Get in here. Christy. This is Christy. Don't get too close to me. Okay, that's Christy. Oh, yeah, there's my name. Okay, there's Christy. Al, come on in. Here's Al Kuntz, who writes your voice. There's Al and Kelsey coming on here. Kelsey is our videographer. She's the guru on all this good stuff. And they've been helping me. And of course, our special guest tonight is Commissioner Blomstedt. We're so happy you're here.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. So
thank you, seriously. You know what? I want everybody to realize this is a real partnership. We are texting, calling, all hours. All hours. I'm just going to start by saying we are blessed to have you in this position. We're blessed to have the State Board of Ed we have. I hear from my colleagues around the country the fights they're having, and to know that once again we are Nebraska strong and we're doing this together. It makes it all, it lightens a tough burden for all of us. So
our fights are more like family.
Yeah, that's right. My family's watching this. They know how bad they can get.
Maybe not that bad then.
Yeah, really. That's true.
Extended family.
That's right. We had in-laws in our family say dinner conversations in this house were like a contact sport, like all the yelling back and forth. Okay, so we're going to start with a little bit of good news because some good things have been happening, and we want to start with the good news. Just today, we got a picture of our teachers at the Hastings Education Association put out goodie bags to all treats to their administrators with a little tagline on it that says, when your morning decisions are obsolete by noon, and they crossed out all these different press releases and, 50, 10, stay in your bathroom, it was kind of funny, it was cute. We're also excited by the school districts and just so appreciative of the school districts that have closed down school, that have told their teachers to take care of their families, that have passed resolutions that are taking care of their support staff. And I know that so many school boards are trying to do that. We've been sharing resolutions that we've gotten from school boards so that we don't have to recreate a model. They can build off of each other. We know that that's really so important, and we're so appreciative. I've also seen great things of teachers sharing things back and forth. I had a friend of mine, we've agreed that she'll only come to my house, that social distancing piece, but she could not figure out how to get her lessons online. So she came over last night, we figured out how to get her lessons online. She sent them to a friend. So there's a lot of that good collegiality going on.
Yeah, that's awesome. And actually, one thing I'd say, I did what I called my Twitter blizzard overnight. Tried to load up everyone's, and I truly woke up in the middle of the night thinking people need to hear something about what's going right, where we're going with this. Frankly, that my approach to this is telling everyone, and I've tried to say it in so many different forums, but I've got your back. What we're doing in Nebraska is going to make a huge difference. It's going to save lives. It's going to actually help us reinvent some things that I think are remarkable. There's a certain dynamic of, we're out there, and so there's not state assessment, right? So we have just saved a whole bunch of time for instruction. Right
I call that one of the silver linings in all of this.
And also just the accountability system. I mean, I haven't figured out exactly what this means for chronic absenteeism, but the reality is it's about student engagement and the direction that we're going to go. And I guess maybe kind of my last point is I got to apologize to my wife because I was here in Lincoln. She's at home, and she always told me that probably the one thing that would happen if I ever said we need to homeschool kids, that she was going to divorce me. So I'll need everyone's help. That's not going to happen.
Tell everybody how many kids you have.
So I have 5 kids. So I mean, it's like 17 down to 10. But the reality is for us is we got the real dynamic. I said to Angela. I tweeted a lot last night. She goes, I know. I woke up at every D. I'm like, sorry about that, honey. So anyway, I'm just telling you, it's real all over the place.
That's right. That's right. It is real all over the place. So one of the things, we're going to get to your questions here real quick, but I said this the other night when we started our Facebook chat that night, and I said, what I'm saying right now could be obsolete by the end of the conversation. I was prophetic because it was obsolete by the end in some cases. And Matt was very good natured and called me and said, Maddie, some of the things you said weren't exactly right. So, but he didn't yell at me.
I did not yell.
He did not yell at me. Somebody else yelled at me, but he did not yell at me. No, but, and so we're going to try to put out the best information we can. But, even like today when I was watching the governor's press conference, as he was walking in, they told him we have our second case of spread in Douglas County. So I think what's important in all of this is we're all rushing. And I've just been telling people to take a breath. Mm-hmm. Because even the other day, I understand this whole 10-person thing has got us freaked out, and that's going to be my first question. I already warned Matt. But we literally had administrators who didn't even know that because their teachers got a text or whatever, and teachers are like, why are we here? And so the information's coming so fast and furious, we all just have to take a breath. That being said, stress brings out the best and the worst in people. And some people are really rising to the occasion, and some people are making some decisions that are making things a little harder. And so we're trying to balance all of that. So the question that we have been getting over and over is that, teachers are really concerned. They're still in school. Some have been told they have to come to school next week from 8 to 4. And if your daycare is closed, just bring your kids. They're trying to figure out, well, why is that school, that school in that district is closed, and they're at home doing whatever, but I've still got to report. How do we negotiate this stuff?
Well, one thing I'll tell you, and I got to thank our ESUs for providing some leadership for some regional conversations. I tweeted out, I think at one point this morning that, hey, Rome was not built in a day, right? So there's a lot of conversations happening about how we're going to best provide education at this moment in time. And I know school districts, they don't have all the answers right now either. So I want everyone to be patient with one another a little bit. Increase the conversations that you're having. I'm actually really kind of pleased. I see all sorts of great ideas and good ideas, but really you need to be able to have some of those conversations at a local level. So trust me, a superintendent or a principal or anyone says that, hey, look, we all need to get there. I would almost guarantee you they're just trying to sort out what the next steps are too. And so let's have a little patience as we get into that. Let's feel it out maybe region by region. So I'll ask ESUs to be taking in information as superintendents are meeting with them once, even twice a week as part of a strategy. Have these conversations, I think, and have staff kind of air those things. But I think we'll find some good ways to do it. So don't get too worried about the initial phases of this. I've been talking to our team about there's kind of a phase. We're kind of in this initial phase. But this, I think legitimately is going to go several weeks. It's not going to be done in 2 weeks. I get asked, well, certainly it came on so fast, it's going to be over so fast. Now, this is something that's going to impact education, not just this year, but maybe forever in Nebraska and across the country. So there's a little bit of time for us to start doing things right and having those conversations.
And you told everybody the last day of school for students in the state of Nebraska is Friday.
Yes. That was my recommendation, statewide, that you do that. Part of the thing is you've seen other states actually just close down. I don't know what all is going to happen in Kansas. I think it'd be a travesty that we actually just close and offer nothing. I think that'd be a travesty to our communities and our families and our students. And so for us to take that breath and figure out how we're going to do this well and serve our communities and families and sort some of these things out. We'll share models across the state. That's my hope that, just because someone starts down this path doesn't mean they'll stay on that path forever. And there's certainly equity issues, both for students and for teachers, that we'll start talking about. And, can I share one thing, Maddie, just a little bit about what we've done at the department? We've not historically had a big work from home policy or how we address that. Within 1 week's time, we've converted the Department of Education to an ability to work from wherever they're at. We had staff working very, very hard. I'm just thinking, what day is today?
Today's Wednesday.
Today's Wednesday. So 1 week ago, this was starting to awaken, not just for Nebraska, but really across the country. In 1 week's time, we've reinvented how the Department of Education actually is going to function on a day-to-day basis. We've reimagined what could be possible in schools and communities from an educational standpoint. And we haven't even turned the corner yet on engaging everyone on their ideas and how we really do this work. So I want folks to be patient. It's scary. I'm telling you, I feel scared just like everyone else. But the reality is I'm so impressed with folks' dedication to what's good for students across the state of Nebraska. Let's just give ourselves a little bit of time to be able to do this. I encourage schools, even though we said by Friday, I was encouraging schools to get out by Wednesday if they could. There was, schools that couldn't. But the reason I did that is because I wanted, schools, teachers and staff generally, just to get a little bit of breather before we're having to figure out what's next week look like, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
And we don't know what next week completely looks like yet. So, so here we go.
So let me be the first one to offer me a culpa, because I said some things the other night that kind of screwed things up a little bit. So one of the things that I said, it was kind of an educator speak in a way, when I said we'd freeze grades. And I didn't realize there were parents, and a lot of you joining us on this tonight are parents, and they were like, you mean my kid's going to be in 3rd grade for another year? And I was like, oh, good God, no. No, that's not what we're going to do. No, what I was talking about from a teacher's point of view is I'd hold a kid's grades here, because when we talk about equity issues, that creates a problem. Some kids, that means, but I've got an F. What does that mean? There are some schools that are saying, well, we're going to give our kids assignments, but we're not going to grade them. And the teacher's like, well, if we're not going to grade them, why are we giving them to them? But that becomes an equity issue, because if you grade kids who have the internet and can get on, but how do you handle it then for the kids who don't have the internet and can't get on? So any guidance on that one?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of things. Number one, back to that local level and having conversations at that local level about what's right. And I like to say, number one, I'm not going to make policy on a Facebook Live. I'm not going to make policy on Zoom.
Dang it, I tried.
You're trying, Maddie, but it's not going to work that way. But what I will say is, hey, look, there are lots of good ideas that we should be talking about. We have our staff really working on what we say is a continuum of education strategy that we're wanting to be able to lay out. I'm hoping to get there by Friday. It might be Monday. But some broad guidance on what this begins to look like. I have a senior at home asking, Dad, how am I going to graduate this year exactly, right? I mean, and I told her she wasn't, but her mom protested. No, the reality is there's those issues, and I'm trying to encourage schools to think through this. It's like, hey, look, you might want to resolve on high schools, you might want to resolve credits for seniors as one of the first things you're doing, and a week later start resolving how you do credits for others, right? So a little bit of prioritization about how we build those strategies out. Again, I think people maybe even 3 or 4 days ago might have thought we'll be back in school in 2 or 3 weeks. No, I really am concerned that that's not the reality of the situation. I was just on a phone call with the U.S. Department of Ed staff, and they are really beginning to look at this much more as a several month event. It could impact us in the fall. So the reality is we have a lot more work to do. And here's the one thing we might find ourselves: we suddenly have time in this sense that when you think in that regular school operation standpoint, just within your day, you aren't doing lunch duty all of a sudden, right? Or you aren't doing running bus duty. At times a different factor. I was really pleased to see over the weekend, parents talking about, oh, this is kind of nice, not chasing our kids down for all these sports events or other events, right? Yeah. It's changed how we're going to think about time and where we're going to spend that time. So I think it's important for us not to get too quickly into a concern about how we're going to get in those routines. I love all you teachers, but you love routines. I'm just going to tell you.
We do. Lesson plans. Tell us what's going to happen. You mentioned the seniors. The other thing we've been hearing about is student teachers.
Yeah.
And, they're really worried. We're really going to need them. And so I heard that in one of the responses to one of the questions was that Nebraska does have a little more malleability in their decision making. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think basically if you think of it, all the teacher prep institutions, all the educator prep institutions end up making a recommendation to us in the end about the completion of that program, and those program requirements that are within rule might come into play. But we haven't had a deep conversation on all of that yet, but I think very much for those students that are, we're in the student teaching, I actually think what a fascinating environment. I mean, it doesn't mean they can't still be student teaching, and in fact, most of the colleges, maybe all of the colleges, have gone really to an online environment. And so there's going to be some learning that we can do there. I think it's, so I can imagine we'll be having conversations with all of our post-secondary partners in that front too.
You also mentioned attendance. do you foresee any plans, just going to let it all roll? At the time this question came in, that some are keeping their kids home and some aren't, but now everybody's kids are going to be home, right?
Yes.
So,
And I think there's challenges that we're going to see. I mean, obviously, certainly a lot of environments where they're staying home. I think you got working parents that are probably having to sort out where their kids are going to be. I'm hoping as this first wave goes that some of those challenges become really known to not just to me, but an understanding of how we might further mitigate those concerns. But it's keeping attendance is probably going to look different. I almost want us thinking a little bit around the lines of the MTSS model, multi-tiered systems of support. You're going to have certain students in certain circumstances that are going to need maybe a little less attention, and certain students are going to need a lot more attention. Certainly our special ed needs on these fronts are also critical. We're working really close with the U.S. Department of Ed on special ed guidance at this moment in time. Nebraska is going to be a leader in the nation on that response. In fact, I feel as if we will help write that guidance as we go forward. I'm hoping for that guidance to come from the federal side by Friday. And giving us, doesn't mean they answer every question either. I said, take that burden off. I was telling them on the phone today, take that burden off, but give me flexibility so we're not just freezing and stopping and doing nothing. We want it to be that you're able to start to implement things that are going to support students.
So one of the people who wrote in asked if perhaps we could do a webinar for special education teachers or a Facebook Live for special education teachers when you do get that guidance, because when you ever have a message, it sometimes takes a while to filter down, and we're finding that things like this are a great way to get the information straight out. So if we could do something like that, I think it would be really helpful. I mean, for those of you who don't, a lot of you probably don't know, but Matt is not only a leader here in Nebraska, but he is also the incoming chair of the Council of Chief State School Officers. So he's not only trying to lead us on the right path and making sure we get this done in the best interest of our kids, he's also doing the same thing nationally with his colleagues. So we're really lucky that you're in that position and can be getting the information out to us ASAP. Also when Matt mentioned the importance of, is there going to be a way we keep attendance with kids? Who knows? But I am going to tell you, our fellow educators out there, I need you to start keeping your attendance. I need you to be logging the time you're spending. And that's could be important to us in a number of ways, but we need you when you are still, and teachers, we're blessed. We've got that state statute that we are going to be paid from state statute from 1919 that says teachers are paid during a pandemic. Yeah. I'm gonna find the person who wrote that. They just said
epidemic. Then.
Epidemic, pandemic, whatever they call it.
I guess it's the same thing.
It's the same thing. Schools closed because people are sick.
Epidemics in one place or one pans across the world.
Okay, well there we go.
I had to learn that myself.
You had
I
to
didn't
learn
know.
that. I know. I've learned
I'm
a
just
lot.
trying to look smart.
I know. I've learned a lot. But teachers, you need to keep track of your time. Now, I am going to say I don't have answers on this, but I do want you all to know that we heard loud and clear that retirement was a concern by some people because there is a requirement that you have 1,000 hours in for your year to count. And Jason Hayes from our staff used to actually be the legal counsel to NPERS, the Nebraska Public Employees Retirement System. He is in very close contact with them, and we hope to be getting some information on that. They're actually working on writing their guidance right now. So keeping track of your hours could end, I'm not saying it's gonna, I'm not making any policy. I'm just saying keep track of your hours, folks, because we may need that later.
I think I got 1,000 hours in since last Wednesday.
I think you have too.
Okay.
You know what? This man needs to be on everybody's prayer list. I told him on our way up, I'm a little worried. You're tweeting in the middle of the night. You were tweeting at me late. We were texting late last night. We all need our sleep. One of the questions we got the other day, and we got it again today, is about the preschool gold period 3.
My grandfather once told me don't speak more than you know.
Okay. Well, they were throwing things at me the other night. I had no clue what they were either.
So I can't answer that specific of a question. So okay. What Melody Hobson and our team, but I mean, I'll take this list with us and obviously gather those things up. I will say there's actually a website at the department that actually has questions, and so
that was on my list to make sure we talk about.
And certainly one way you can do it even with NSEA is just questions that you think are kind of coming in on a regular basis. Let's enter them in there. That gives us a way to kind of organize and start sharing them. Yeah.
So if you go to the Nebraska Department of Ed website, right on the very top part of the page is a link to coronavirus information. Click on that, and then down on the left side, it'll have a contact. And if you click on that, and if you have questions and submit them that way, we also put this out on Twitter and Facebook in the last couple of days so that they know to submit their questions there. That's a place that you can submit questions. We are also recording this, and we have staff who go back later and transcribe all the questions. And so we'll be recording questions from that also and trying to get answers out to you from all of these too. Kelsey, we said we'd take questions from the field.
Yes.
So it's
probably
probably
time
time.
that Jason Hayes is answering retirement questions in the feed.
Of course, Jason is answering retirement questions in the feed because he rocks that way.
I'm glad to hear that, so I don't have to.
There you go. That's even better. That's even better. Okay.
I have a question about retirement, but Jason is taking care of that. I use 3 sick leave to stay home because I have asthma. I attended meetings during Zooms. Can I get my sick days back, or how does that work when you're at home?
That's going to go by your
still-
school district. That's going to go by your school
Can you
district.
repeat the question?
So thank you. The question is, I was out on sick days, but I was taking Zoom meetings. Can I get my sick days back? So questions like that are really going to go school district by school district. Folks, you need to reach out to your local association president. Ask them the question, let them work on it. If you're not getting an answer that you feel is appropriate, feel free to reach out to your NSEA organizational specialist. So what we would like to do, it's just like all things. If you have a problem, first try to solve it at the simplest level. What do you call that? Ready to work?
Yeah.
Yeah, they use ready to work at the department, which is what's your personal one-on-one status. Well, after you told me that, that's what we did here too. I didn't know that's what you called it, but we've got some of our staff who are choosing to come in the building 2 or 3 a day, and anybody who said I want to work from home, we let them work from home because with today's technology, we can do that. You need to be having those conversations with your administrators. I know we've heard from teachers who are pregnant who are concerned, teachers who have asthma or other underlying health issues, or they have somebody at home. One of my staff had somebody at home who was ill and was afraid about taking it to them. So if you have those fears, have the conversation first with your administrator, see if you can resolve it that way. If you can't resolve it that way, go to your local association president and ask them for help. If you still can't get it solved, go to your organizational specialist. If you don't know who that person is, go to the NSEA.org website, and you can find the map there, and it'll tell you who it is. If you still can't find it, dial 1-800-742-0047, and we'll connect you with your organizational specialist. And we're going to work on these, and if we can't solve them, I'm going to call 1-800-MATT, and I'm going to say, Matt, this superintendent is being difficult. He needs some of your wisdom. And Matt has been really good about calling those superintendents and giving them their wisdom. And I was actually even on the phone with another superintendent today, thanking him for what he's doing and asking him to share that with his colleagues.
And one thing I'll just tell you, everyone's under stress and pressure. Superintendents, they're asking me tough questions. I can't get all their questions answered. You're asking superintendents or principals questions. They can't get them all answered. It's just sinking in right now for folks. Here's what we're going to be able to do is collectively work together to be able to address that. I've already shared some best practices on what we've done at the agency, but it's not like we knew either. Like I started asking staff right away, hey, look, and one thing I wanted to make sure that they understood was I really cared about, their well-being. I tried to be sensitive to those that might be vulnerable for their own health reasons. Start thinking about, and part of it, I'm just going to say, we can't function if everybody goes down at the same time. So all the things around social distancing and how we work together is important, because we're going to have to sustain the system, and we're going to have to do that work together. So
yeah.
I heard from a teacher that I've only had 2 out of my 22 4th graders get online in the past few days. Just a question, how are we helping teachers and districts get online?
So how are we helping teachers and districts get online?
Yeah, so actually it depends a lot where things are. I am actually trying to work also at the national level. I would love to see our cell phone providers that I pay a lot of money to, and you all do as well, thinking about ways that they could be getting us hotspots for kids, thinking about ways that they can be doing something to serve our communities in more effective ways. But we have places, number one, that don't have broadband access at all, so that's a challenge. So we're going to have to balance that out. I think starting to engage with your students and starting to understand which ones are able to connect and not able to connect if you're doing it that way. I know a lot of schools are doing other things. There's other enrichment that could be part of that process and part of the opportunity for students. And so we are looking at it. And so it's going to be probably a bit of a challenge for me to answer something that gets it all out there. But I just will say that is one of the concerns that I have. And we've actually been in contact with several of our partners within the state and outside of the state as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is really bringing home the digital divide that we have. I mean, there's a real a lack of access and a lack of equity in that. And it's not just rural versus urban, although that is becoming even more apparent as we're trying to plan things, but it's even for kids in urban areas. I mean, we've got these assignments that are going out, and we have kids who don't have computers at home, or it's really difficult to do it on the phone, or the one computer went home and the whole family's got to share it. So, I mean.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's like the reality for us is also not to think of in an environment that looks quite like your normal school day, right? So learning is going to take place a little bit differently. Obviously, teachers trying to make contacts and engage with students. I suspect we're going to see a lot of different strategies, and and we're going to be sharing the ones that are working. I mean, I don't mean the department. I just mean in Nebraska. I know we'll be sharing all those things. So
right, and towards that sharing, so we're kind of rearranging the work that our staff is doing. You can understand that. And one of the things we're doing is we've tasked a couple of our staff to actually begin to put together all these resources. And we're going to categorize that, and then we're going to be putting those out on our website. And again, NSEA.org. There's already a number of resources up there, but we're going to go in and we're going to start categorizing what looks good for the social emotional learning of kids, what looks good for science teachers, what looks good for online this, what looks good for all different kinds of things, so that you'll have resources you can pull. Now, somebody asked me a question, well, Maddie, if we put this up there, whose intellectual property is it? Well, I'm not an attorney. I'm married to one, and he'll tell you I'm definitely not one, although I argue like one. And so we're not going to do anything to steal anybody's intellectual property, but that's a concern I know some people have.
So we're building actually and have built our OER hub, right? That actually can
What's OER?
So Open Education Resource Hub.
There you go.
And so, we have a group that's been working for quite some time that we call Future Ready. And so what will start to happen is these digital resources that we can actually categorize and actually put into a position. We're also going to be looking at finding other digital resources that can be available. I don't know if I tweeted something out there was a Mr. Rogers quote one of my staff put up, and I said, hey, look, NET Nebraska, couldn't you get Mr. Rogers back? I didn't know it was on already. I should know because I'm up at 5 a.m. all the time, but those are good things for us to be thinking about the partnerships. And so we have a lot of that happening. And so all of you that are going to, maybe are kind of our media specialist types, we're going to be organizing with all of you to make a real difference to keep those resources plugging away. Yeah. And that's my promise on this front is if it can be imagined and it's a good thing for a kid, we're going to try to find ways to do it.
Yeah, and actually we were on the phone today with NETV, and they talked about having talked with you, but I got a press release here that's probably just gone out, and we're going to do the Nebraska Strong Learning Lab, because we all had to be Nebraska Strong through the floods last year. Now we're going to be Nebraska Strong through this next crisis, and we're partnering with Lincoln Public Schools, News Channel Nebraska, and being funded by the National Education Association. And through News Channel Nebraska, we're going to put out 4 hours per day of quality educational programming. From 9 to 11 in the morning, we're going to do elementary, and from 1 to 3 in the afternoon, we're going to do secondary. And folks, I need you. I need your teaching. I need folks Lincoln Public Schools has got a space for teachers to come in, and you're going to teach your lessons. We're going to show them live. Don't ask me what this all looks like. We're just brainstorming on it. I've pulled together a few teachers who have agreed to help and coordinate other teachers. We'll pay your mileage to come down here and teach. We're going to teach to the Nebraska standards. And the nice thing about doing it with the News Channel Nebraska is that they are across the state. You can get it on your phone. You can get it online. But even with a $10 antenna, kids can also get it on their TV in most places across the state. Unfortunately, not everywhere, but in most places. So we're hoping this will help us bridge some of that digital divide. And they are also the only carrier of Telemundo, our Spanish-speaking carrier, as well as the only news carrier for Spanish speakers. And so we're working with our bilingual teachers to be offering Spanish-speaking lessons and bilingual. I mean, for every parent who's ever wanted their child in a dual language classroom, hopefully by mid next week, they'll be able to have that experience, because we're going to work with some dual language teachers, and we're going to offer that. So we're thinking outside the box, outside the box. So if you're interested in this and being a part of this, on our website is also a place where teachers can volunteer. Go in and fill that out. Note that you want to do that. And we're going to start organizing that and get teachers started doing that on Monday.
Can SPED expect more specific guidance in regards to Nebraska's expectation on how accommodations and service are supposed to be implemented?
Yes, in fact, so very much, again, I think I got off that phone call around 4:45. What's that? Oh, the question. Sorry, yeah, the question was, are we going to get guidance on special ed services and accommodations and how we're going to do that? And so again, we're working on that. I have what day of the week is this?
Wednesday. It's still Wednesday.
It's Wednesday still. Okay. So tomorrow I have a phone call.
See what I mean about he needs to sleep.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. So I have a phone call tomorrow. We had one today, very small, much smaller group. Tomorrow with probably all of the state chiefs and lots of other folks from around the nation, so all my peers around the nation, with the U.S. Department of Ed on providing guidance on areas around special education and accommodations. Obviously, FAPE, or free appropriate education, it has to be provided. But the reality is they're trying to get us a little. Thanks, Al, for the Wednesday reminder.
But you wrote it up there so we wouldn't forget now.
So I know what day it is. I might need the year. But the reality for this is we will have guidance out. I expect to have, number one, what I call broad guidance by Friday, because we have a lot of places saying, hey, look, we can't do. And what I'm asking educators across the state is what we can do, and we're going to be working to make sure that guidance is there. I'm really very pleased with the U.S. Department of Ed's response to our requests, not just from Nebraska, but from around the country. We'll have that guidance. And then we're going to work with them on a technical assistance model so we can help places. And then our team, so Amy Rohn, who's our new special ed director.
Boy, she's coming in a fun time, isn't she?
And she's energized for the work. That's how Amy is. And so, can I just say something?
Whatever you want.
I have just such a great staff working so hard. I mean, I know you're seeing what I'm doing maybe on different fronts, but it's actually what they're doing that's keeping me going and energized for this work. And so on the special ed front, Steve Milliken, Amy Rohn, and our team are working very hard, but we're actually working all together. So Corey Epler, as our chief academic officer, is doing this work, from technology and everything else we have going on. Zainab Rita, who's our equity officer, is helping me lead kind of on some of this response side, and Ryan Four, who's my officer really for the policy side of this work, is helping me on the inside of that work. Our three deputies, I've already mentioned Steve, but Dr. Deb Friesen, by the way, we'd be really busy if this wasn't happening. I mean, we're trying to work with YRTCs. This has created quite an issue of working in that environment. Brian Halstead's keeping a steady thing. I told Brian he's got a lot of have a free time, because Brian does our government relations and work with legislature.
That's right.
He's got free time now.
That's right.
He can do more.
That's
right.
I
hope he's not watching.
That's true. But you mentioned special ed. Is there going to be guidance? One of our people asked about Title I. Mm-hmm. What are going to be the requirements to meet those kids who've been identified as needing extra intervention under Nebraska Reads law?
Yeah, so in fact, I think I saw that Abby Burke and Corey Epler, there's going to be more guidance on that front. So I'll share just a thought. Number one, I'm also very worried about our elderly populations that are going to have to be secluded in this environment. I tweeted something out today. I have a friend that actually works AARP for Nebraska. He just took this job not that long ago, and I can remember having a conversation with him. He's like, well, I don't know exactly what we could work on. Well, today I said, wouldn't it be great if we have students reading to, maybe by video or otherwise, reading to folks in the nursing home, and vice versa, or their grandparents who can't see them otherwise.
Yeah.
And so if we're thinking about reading strategies, how can schools help in this environment? How can we keep thinking about this chance to engage with the community more broadly. And I think on reading strategies, it would be a wonderful thing. We haven't even started to engage yet with how we're going to use libraries and community sources, and so I think there's a lot more to do there. But again, I think sky's the limit, right? You know, we're not limited to every one of those components of how the state law currently works. We get some flexibility around this right now, and let's use that flexibility to just show how creative we can be in education.
Yeah. You know, one of the things we've heard repeatedly, we kind of addressed it the other night, is we're all really concerned about our paraprofessionals. Mm-hmm. While teachers are covered under this law, our paraprofessionals are not. And while some school districts, Lincoln, Omaha, Kearney, some others have come out and said, we're going to pay our paraprofessionals for X amount of time, and they'll keep putting through the resolutions as they need to. There's a lot of people that are really worried about that. And part of it is this, you know, the worry is, well, the state's going to decrease our funding. Do you see any funding being decreased?
So what's interesting is, I mean, obviously the funding that's already there. I mean, our bigger concern maybe around the economy, you know, is a longer front is a bigger concern for me. But I think, you know, what schools have right now, that they're not going to have a decrease in funding. There's actually, just like those 1919 laws, they're going to get the funding that they have. There's probably, you know, we haven't solved the property tax issues yet. The legislature will come back and solve all that. But the
boy, you really are. That was good. They're going to come back and solve all that. That has been said by the Commissioner of Education. I hope you're listening, Senators. I invited a bunch of you. Okay, go ahead.
No, but I mean, the reality is, right now what schools have is access to those resources there. I'm not going to say there's not some, you know, some longer term concern, but right now let's kind of weather this storm. Schools should have access to that. I've talked to superintendents in a couple different situations where I even mentioned it at, I think that I got used to having a press conference every day for a while, but I'm over that too. But the reality is looking for ways to keep those employees. I've actually had superintendents say, hey, look, if they aren't being paid, we're going to lose them somewhere else. And how would we ever get them back? Our paras, I think around the special ed front in particular, a lot of paras have special ed student responsibilities, and how do we get there? I think there's going to be a lot of that work. I can't speak for what every district's going to do or how they're going to manage those things, but I think they're highly motivated to find ways that can be accomplished. I am going to be working with the governor. I know there was supposed to be some legislation that was looking at, or at least talked about how to manage that, and maybe that still comes through. But the reality is, actually, the governor's been very supportive, and we're working on a bit of a strategy with them on. So if he does have emergency orders and there's something in the law that prevents someone from being paid in that fashion, there's some willingness to work. So we're coming really together, and this is my hope for the future of this country. I don't know what happens, but if Nebraska can show how we can all work together to solve this type of crisis, we can probably figure out how to solve other things, maybe even property taxes.
You know what? It is nice to see everybody not joining hands, but at least joining hearts.
Yeah, we do not want to tell you that's so.
No. Notice we have our yardsticks out here. I think they're from 1919. But we did do our yardsticks so that we are staying far apart here. We're modeling. We're teachers. We're modeling.
That was 3 inches short.
Yeah, I know. One of them's 3 inches short. You know, and the other thing, though, I think it's an important piece to note is that schools are the bedrock of their community, not only because, you know, communities trust their teachers, but they're also, teachers spend their money in their communities. Our paras spend their money in their communities. So if we don't fund our teachers and our paras, we're going to find ourselves in even worse economic times. I mean, I ordered dinner tonight for us from Panera, and I way over tipped because that's what we have to be doing right now. Yeah.
Some districts are going to grade e-learning, others are not. What's fair for our students?
So some districts are going to grade e-learning, others are not. What is fair for our students?
So first of all, I think, again, I've kind of put this in. Breathe. Rome was not built in a day. Let's start looking at what those practices are. Some schools are really ready to move into that environment, and again, maybe it's our seniors that maybe are working in environments that are already quite frankly maybe kind of at least a blended learning environment. So maybe they're used to that. They're going to be able to keep going. Other places aren't working in that type of environment, and so again. I think there'll be consistency for grading for classes and schools, and that's probably where you need to look. But if you look between different schools or even between different classes, it's going to have slightly different grading policies.
Yeah.
I think the fairness part is ensuring that we are identifying what those learning objectives are. Students ought to know what those learning objectives are. Help them engage in that learning. As I can tell a lot of folks, I really like this line, grades don't really matter, learning matters.
Oh, that's good. Say that again.
Grades don't really matter, learning matters, right?
That's a good quote, guys. I like that one.
I used it because that's what I told my mom when I didn't get good grades. But, she was a teacher.
Now it sounds prophetic.
She was a teacher, and I was always learning. I call it the hard way sometimes, but.
Yeah, I know it is kind of funny, all this stuff you're seeing posted now on Facebook and Twitter about how much parents are appreciating teachers. Yeah. That just cracks me up. Yeah. That just cracked me up.
Well, I already mentioned my wife, and I'm hoping this doesn't last too long. That's all.
Yeah, my son. So I have a 19-year-old son who is autistic, low cognitive functioning. He walked the dog 4 times yesterday. Yeah. I'm like, dude, you and the dogs both. And today when they woke up and it was raining, I said, I'm going into work. You guys can be home. There's somebody else here. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of walking the dogs.
That's good. Yeah.
I know we discussed some of the what's happening on a national level, but is there anything happening on the national level to make sure districts cannot be sued over SPED plans?
Yes.
Yes.
So we're working on the national level to make sure that we're dealing with the issues around litigation and those responsibilities. And so, yes, absolutely.
Can you talk a little bit also about feeding kids and about, I've read some rules are being relaxed about feeding kids and thanks to the invite of the commissioner, NSEA is involved in a coalition, part of the coalition about feeding kids. But do you want to talk a little bit about that? Yeah,
and I'll try not to speak more than I know, but we've really had a staff. I sat down with our nutrition staff. It was probably yesterday. It seems like a year ago, but it was probably yesterday.
Remember, it's Wednesday.
Okay.
Yeah,
there's a guide. I think it must have been yesterday. Anyway, they're already really working with places. I had, I'll just point it out because it's a good note. Dr. Grover, superintendent in Grand Island Public Schools. They must have been a little frustrated with having to put an application in, and they didn't know what they could do. And we had put an application in for statewide waivers on how schools could provide food and what they could do with that. And so she asked me the question, well, I said, just start feeding your kids. I said, if you have any problems, I'll be talking to Senator Fisher, Senator Sass, Congressman Smith and Bacon and Fortenberry, and doing all of that work together. So the nice part is USDA. I think I have a phone call with our representative from USDA tomorrow. One thing we learned also through the flooding, we kind of knew our contacts on some of those emergency procedures. And so, I feel really bad for all of you who went through flooding last year and now dealing with this. But we learned a lot in that flooding environment that made us more prepared for this moment. And so, maybe that's a little God blessing thing for us, but certainly on food programs, we learned a lot from that, and there's a lot of possibilities, and I really think it's going well. I certainly, as others keep giving us feedback, we'll find out. But.
Good. And I do want to remind teachers that the NSEA has the Children's Fund. This is a fund that you teachers have funded through those Jeans Days and other things. And so if you have kids that have a need, a specific need, please let us know. Call our 1-800-742-0047, and we'll do all we can to help you with that. Kelsey had another question.
Yes. Will there be a statewide policy regarding how teachers are reporting from home or in a school building? And side question to that, some teachers are still reporting to buildings. Is that safe?
So I think maybe that's kind of two different questions. Statewide policy, maybe I'll try to restate it and then make sure I get it right. But there was a question about statewide policy for teachers reporting, and I think you mean physically reporting.
Yes.
And is it safe to do so? Now, number one, I think we've got a lot of kind of consternation over. It's not schools themselves that have created the spread of coronavirus. I want you to understand that it's not the building. Right? The concern in the student populations is that among students that they could spread that virus quickly, and we could actually end up, damaging the public health by spreading the virus so quickly. What we do know about adults is they're able to distance here, Maddie.
That's right.
We're able to distance our 6 feet away from one another pretty easily, right? We hopefully, if you guys are kind of picking on each other and fighting and saying, they won't quite stop touching me. That's usually what I hear from my kids. No, the reality is, the threat of having school was about how student interactions worked, and you all know that far better than I do. So the reality of that teachers might report to school, to the physical place. It's not that that's any more dangerous than other work environments. There's not a restriction on work environments other than that, but we should be thoughtful. Leaders should be thoughtful about that particular distancing. We should be thoughtful about our vulnerable populations of teachers. I don't know every circumstance that may be. I know that teachers might even have childcare and other things. I'd be asking leaders across the state to be thoughtful and creative about how we manage that. We're certainly trying to think about that at the Department of Ed. I know our communications director, administrator, has a couple of young ones at home, and daycare is also potentially going away. So we're trying to figure those things out as well.
But there's no mandate.
There's no mandate.
For a teacher to be paid, they must be in the building.
Not that I'm aware of, and I'll say it that way. I think it's how the schools decide to have them report. Again, give folks a little bit of time. Talk about strategies that'll make a difference at that local level. I don't think blanket statements probably are a reality for us on that. But again, I think those conversations are important, and keep having them, and don't expect everyone to have all those answers right away. Even your principal doesn't know everything.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah.
A number of viewers want clarification on tracking hours. Do they count research for lessons, actual time, an actual time outline? What counts? Should they go back or just start tracking now?
You know what? I'd start tracking now. I mean, I would. Oh, so the question was, what do I mean when I said teachers should track hours? I think you should, to me, and the question was, do we track when we plan? Well, you have plan time and you track plan time. So if you're planning for a lesson, I'd track that. If you're contacting parents, I'd track that. If you're, if you wake up at, some of the stuff I've read says if you're working from home, you should still get up, you should still take a shower, you should get dressed, you should do some of those routine things. And if you sit down at your home office and you're working on lesson stuff, you should track that. Now, don't make it crazy that you're tracking every minute and don't drive yourself crazy. But if later somebody asks you to substantiate, you'd be able to do that.
And I think part of it, and again, this might be something I can talk with other educational leaders about and have a bit more conversation, maybe kind of and get to this point. But the reality is, if as your normal teaching contract might have had, you're reporting at X time and reporting out at X time, you're probably thinking about how can I be working in that period of time, and then your hours are actually going to be pretty similar to what you might have experienced now. But you might even be saying, hey, look, I've got some challenges during the day. How do I track those hours? I don't want to speak to the extent that a lot of local level policies are going to come into play. But I would say good practices are you're probably being asked to show up at a given point in time and work your day, right?
And then show up might mean show up at your computer.
It might mean show up at your computer, but you're basically being asked to quote unquote work for the period of time between X hour and X hour. And that's probably what the expectation is from parents and kids, right? But I know a heck of a lot of you that are doing things constantly as well.
Yeah.
You tweet back, or I love it when I tweeted and I can't remember who it was now off the top of my head. Well, Commissioner, why don't you go to bed now? I'm like, why are you tweeting me back? I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that's right. The pot call. Yeah.
We've had a lot of questions about how are we supporting our substitute teachers who rely on income.
That's not one I've been able to be part of any conversations yet, but I think it's a really important part of that process. And I wouldn't doubt that there's plenty of other things to do, but I can't speak to that issue very well. I don't have a good grasp of how that's going, and that probably varies district by district. I would say similar to other, maybe even our non-certified staff, kind of keeping our substitute teaching pool is a critical part of that. And if we lose that in the future, we'll be short a necessary resource. So So again, I can't answer how that's going to happen, but I keep asking that question because I think among leaders, that'd be one of those that I wouldn't mind having a conversation with. By the way, I don't think I mentioned it yet. I'm doing a statewide call with superintendents, and I've had the governor on. Maddie's been invited to participate in that. I think that forum will change from what's happening out here to how do we do this stuff all the better, and how do we provide that leadership. So those are the questions. Keep coming, but we'll work on that more, and I know engage leaders and boards and others on those things as we go forward.
Yeah, lots of questions about maternity leave and just worries of future moms who are worried.
Yeah,
about
so I think the guidance around pregnant moms that's probably among the vulnerable. I would encourage, regardless of what other vulnerability might exist among staff, that's just to be really thoughtful about it. Again, there's probably policies and procedures and things at school level that I couldn't blanket statements say, but I would start by just, having that conversation with whomever the supervisor is and going down that path. So.
And Matt, what about home visits? We've heard some people that have been told that they're going to have to do home visits, and they're really worried about how they don't bring something back. They don't bring anything to the kids.
It's probably some of those same. And again, I don't think I have the answers on this, and we'll probably be talking with folks around health. But the reality is, most households are going to be. You should be calling ahead. Hey, look, anyone sick in the household? How that's going? I think a bit of that caution around those fronts, because we don't want to suddenly just create a different environment where we're spreading the virus. Again, our concerns for the most part is to slow down that spread. It will spread. I think that's what I also want folks to understand. The strategy here is if you look at the UNMC stuff and any of this about flattening the curve, it's really about slowing the spread so it's not suddenly upon us and overwhelming our systems. Mm-hmm. But you want the same thing, I think, among education and among communities. You don't want the whole community being hit, and if you don't want to be the one that's carrying it house to house to house either. So being very thoughtful, asking folks how they're doing, using the same social distancing, techniques as well. And so home visits are probably one of those, again, case by case. There's going to be conversations probably. At the same point in time, I just can't imagine having a society where we're not talking to one another. I describe this. Maybe I'll send it to you. You guys are welcome to publish it. I sent a message to my staff describing this as the foe. That this is a foe, and it preys on our human behaviors. That we like to be in human contact. We like to hug one another, right? I mean,
oh yeah.
This is
anybody whose love language is physical touch.
Yeah.
My niece, who's staying with me, literally was jumping up and down because she couldn't hug her sister the other day. I mean, it's really hard.
It's hard. I'll just get personal a little bit. I mean, everybody has vulnerable family members, but I've got a brother right now that's has liver cancer. I'm very worried about him. I went and visited him last week. I said it's probably the last time I'm coming for quite some time. These are real deals, and so but remember, we're all going to be part of that. So by the way, it's not that everyone should be worried about getting sick themselves. The reality is everybody's going to get this over a period of time, or many of us are going to get this over a period of time. But do everything you can to protect your own health, and primarily do everything you can to protect the health of vulnerable people as well.
Yeah, I will admit, when I finally lost it, well, first of all, as I said to you, I didn't sleep one night, which is bad for me, but then I was on the phone with my dad. And my dad, who's an outgoing, I wrote about him in my column in The Voice, Mr. goes to AA once or twice every day except for Tuesdays, because that's NCIS, and he loves it, and he loves to be social. And I told him, I said, I can handle helping every teacher across the state. NSEA is here I've got staff that are working on it. All of us are working on it. But Dad, if something happens to you, I can't handle it. And that's when I finally lost it. And I said, don't make me come and put holes in your tires. I mean, you got to stay home. And it's really hard for him.
I know you told me that once too. But
yeah, that was pretty different.
Okay. To mental health for teachers and for their students.
Yeah,
mental health for teachers and students.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very worried about it. And actually, this notion of kind of helping one another is a big part of that. I think to be very cognizant that it's an emotional time for a lot of different reasons, and that to kind of be in a position where we're understanding of one another. And I just ask my staff. I'm always a very pleasant person. I don't know. No, I mean the reality is you catch yourself every once in a while, and you're like, okay, I could have done so much better by that, right?
Yeah.
And I think in part people's nerves are frayed. It's a challenge. I'm worried about our students. I'm hoping kind of give everyone this chance to kind of breathe and relax. But we already had some of those challenges, obviously, with it's a stressful type of job. The best thing I could do for you so far on mental health is, that if statewide assessment's not happening, don't worry about that part.
There we go.
That's one thing. I don't know if I got anything else for you, but that's one thing.
So I also want to say, I know I got an email today, and many of you did, from the Educators Health Alliance, which is the health carrier for almost all but like 3 school districts in the state. That's run by the NSEA, the School Boards Association, the Administrators Association, and they sent out an email on Headspace, which is an app that they offer. And I know our president, Jenny Benson, who by the way would be here, but she is just getting over influenza, and so she's very appropriately.
I'm glad she's not here.
I know, we love Jenny, but we're glad she's at home. She's being very good. She hasn't missed a Zoom or she puts herself on silent because she's coughing so much, but she is working from home and showing how to do that. But we have a funny story in our office because one day everybody was looking for her, and everybody's like, "Where's Jenny? Where's Jenny?" They couldn't find her because she had Headspace on and she was behind her door doing the Headspace things. And so that's another thing that, and I know the other night when we did this, a therapist came on and said, "I've already set up to do remote with my kiddos." For our EHA members, you can get telehealth. It is now free via the Amwell app, and it also offers we can get mental health counseling through that app also. So that is something that we can do, is the telehealth counseling. I also reached out today to the Counselors Association. We've been doing some work with them. NSEA has been working with the NSCA, and it gets a little confusing when you put those together. But we reached out to them, and we're going to be working with our counselors and our members who are counselors and asking them for help about how do we help kids, and when we go back, how are we all going to be ready to go back together? Because I know right now we're worried about shutting down, but we also are, we're going to reopen again, and how are we going to be ready for that?
Okay.
So
we'll have to do some quick questions.
Okay,
quick
quick
questions. What
questions.
do you have on your list that you?
I'm good. I think I've gone through
lightning round.
a lightning round.
Okay.
Lightning round. Before we go to the lightning round, before I forget, I want to say one other thing. I want to really thank the NSEA staff who have been tremendous in the work that they've done. They've re-geared. They're working from everywhere, trying to get everything done. They're answering all kinds of members' questions. They're online answering your questions, and just a huge shout out and kudos to our staff, to our leadership, to Jenny and to Paul and to Linda and to Tracy and to our board members who are sending things in. I mean, they are modeling how to work together as a team, and I really do appreciate that. Okay, now lightning round.
Okay, I think you guys mentioned about grades are frozen, but the question was, if grades are frozen, how does online school work as far as grading?
That's going to go district by district.
Okay, how is NSEA supporting instruction?
Grading is going to go district by district. Okay, Al's telling us to repeat so you can hear.
How is NSEA supporting instruction?
How is NSEA supporting instruction? Is that it?
Yeah.
So we are going to be listing resources on our website to help you support your instruction. We're going to intend to be listing resources, not only online lesson plans, and we're trying to work with other groups to put all that together, but we know some of you working online at all is a completely new environment. You're not used to this. So how can we be helping each other, teacher to teacher, learn those skills? And so we hope to be putting more of that information out.
High school seniors and graduation, how's that working statewide?
So I think a lot of different conversations on
high school
seniors and
graduation. How are we going to do it?
Yeah, thanks. I don't think it's going to be a statewide answer, but obviously what we're working on is ensuring that every senior is getting to that point. I think the other part that I think is going to be important is there's those social things that I missed. I think I tweeted out something. My daughter came home, I think first day that they knew she knew she wasn't going to be doing high school as she always imagined. I said, think of the things that are going to happen, but we need to rally around that class, and you know, this will be a big memory for that class. Hopefully it will be 100 years before we see something like this again.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
What happens to my kiddos that have an IEP?
So the kids that have IEP, and again, this certainly work with the district. Districts will be, and schools will be having meetings. I anticipate a little bit more guidance coming out on this front, but ensuring that we're able to meet the new demands for what students need in this environment, right? It's going to take a little bit of time. I'd ask parents and students and teachers and everyone to be a bit patient, but I think over the next couple of weeks, that's going to become a pretty clear and actually hopefully an exciting thing for all of our students.
Okay, last question.
Last question for both of you. How do you guys plan in the future to work together to help everyone?
No, this is it. We're done. We're done.
You'll never see us working
I'm
together.
changing my number.
I appreciate what you've done for not just in this time, but all these other times. It's you know what I think is wonderful, and what I'm maybe most proud of in the state is our ability to build these partnerships. And so I just love being able to work with everyone here, and thanks for what you're doing, Maddie.
You bet. We're a team. We're really lucky. We are going to be doing more of these. We intend to do this on Sunday night at 7:30, and our next guest is already lined up. It sounds so funny. I feel like I'm Ellen or something.
Very good.
I know. John Spots from the Nebraska Association of School Boards is going to join us and talk about things from a school board perspective on Sunday night at 7:30. I do want to say that every one of our NSEA members is going to be getting this fabulous mailing. It's going out in tomorrow's mail. Please look for it. It has some really key information for you. One of the things we know is we need everybody's updated home email address. People aren't necessarily going to be logging into school emails, so we need to know what your home email address is. We also need your cell phone number because we have the opportunity to be texting people using a program we have. So the best ways for us to get information out to you are, your email, your text message, your social media. This will tell you how to update that. Our staff here has also done a really great job of putting together some of these frequently asked questions that you've sent us. This will also be posted online. So look for this, please. Read it carefully. I just want to say, kind of to end things, because it's time to be done. Matt took like 2 bites of his soup and then he had to get busy. I want to thank everybody for being on here tonight. I know that these are really trying times. I know that we are all been moving at 1,000 miles an hour, and I don't know about you, but feel like I've been playing whack-a-mole, just trying to stop one thing after another. So it's nice to just take a step back and to kind of be together and to talk about these problems together and how we're going to solve them together. And quite honestly, what we were trying to do here is trying to role model what we hope you're able to do with your administrators back home, which is to talk about these things, for everybody to see their points of view, and to work on this together. Again, I know I've heard from so many of my friends that are really struggling. They're struggling because they're missing their kiddos. Closing their classrooms and saying goodbye and not knowing when you're going to get to say hello again is extremely hard and extremely difficult, and we all know that. So let's remember to give each other grace. Give each other grace to fail and to get back up again. Give each other grace to make mistakes and to come back at it again. If we stay together, we're going to make it together, because we are Nebraska strong. So thanks for joining us tonight, and we will see you again, hopefully Sunday night at 7:30 if you'd like to join us. Oh, and if you know anybody who doesn't have Facebook but wants this, we'll put up the links somewhere. I think we put it on our website, and they can get this too later. All right, take care and be well, everybody.